How different is it when you do that or play the White House Correspondents' Dinner and the parties there? And how different are you? How different is your act when you play to such a much larger crowd?
Yeah, well, the show that I do at the Waldorf is great because people expect to see magic. They come with the intent to see magic. And for me, it's kind of like, imagine if you're going out to the opera. You get dressed up in nice clothes, and you have a whole week, perhaps, you're leading up to it in your mind. You're thinking, oh, I'm going to see the opera, I'm going to see the opera. And I wanted to create that with a magic show, because you think magic shows are for kids, like we talked about before, but I wanted to make it an entirely adult environment, and not adult in like a risque way, but adult in that it's sophisticated, and we encourage people to get dressed up in nice outfits, and we have men dressing in jackets and ties, and women wearing cocktail dresses and fine jewelry, and they come with the intent of seeing magic. That's great to me, because I don't have to win them over. They've kind of won themselves over. And then when they get to the Waldorf, there's a lot of frames they have to walk through. They have to walk through the frame of the front door where, all the presidents walk through, and this special elevator, and down the long hallway where there's usually Secret Service. And, people have kind of psyched themselves up into seeing a great show.
So the theater of the mind is already engaged.
The theater of the mind is exactly engaged. And when I get invited to these outside events, like the White House Correspondents' Dinner, or when I get invited to people's homes, and I do a lot of private events at people's mansions and things, then it's a different story, because they're there for some other event, and I'm like the hired gun. And fortunately, I don't get sent in through the back entrance anymore, like I did when I was just getting started, through the kitchen. I usually get a chance to, get flown in on private jets and whatnot. But, which is
not a bad life. That's good magic.
Yes.
Tell me about the dollar bill trick. Which
well, here's I'll show you something fun. And I showed this first to Steve Cohen, who's my namesake, Stephen A. Cohen from SAC Capital. And I'll tell you about that in a second.
Sure.
But here's a little trick, which I think you'll enjoy. It uses some money.
Okay.
And if we get a zoom in on this on the camera, it'd be terrific. It uses about $4 or $5. Okay. How much have we got here today? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, just $5.
Okay.
Can we see this on the screen?
Can we have the cutaway shot of this ready, guys? There we go.
There we go. This is great. So we'll just use a bunch of dollar bills. And what I'd like you to do, would you please, and this is important, Mike, would you please point to any one of the bills?
Okay.
This one here.
That one.
I'm going to change this dollar into a $100 bill before your very eyes. Now, if this changes into a $100 bill, there's no party favors. We're clear about that? You can't take it home with you.
Okay.
Here, watch very carefully. My sleeves are pulled back. Everything's fair and square. Please don't blink your eyes as it change into a $100 bill. You want to see it again?
Yes.
I'll change them all then. That's 100. That's 200. That's 300. That's 400. That's $500. Fronts and backs. That's real cash. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, $500.
That's excellent. Now you realize that in this age of television, somebody out there has recorded this and will be going back taking a look.
Fair enough. I'm happy to. Yeah, exactly. And if they want to send in their wallets, I'd be happy to do it with theirs too. I'll be on my private jet to Acapulco.
Where did that trick come from? There's some tricks that are classics that everybody who operates at your level likes to either do or be able to do.
Right. Well, you asked a great question, which is, where does magic come from? And it's just like I mentioned before about music. Where does a symphony come from? Well, it comes from people. I mean, people have to create these tricks, and we see them later. But oftentimes, we forget about who those creators are.
Right.
And for me, I'm a student of magic. I mean, in addition to being a performer, I really feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of these wonderful inventors. And sometimes the inventors are not very good magicians as far as performance goes, but they might have been total geniuses as far as
dreaming up something that somebody else could perhaps do better than they.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the one I just showed you was based on a trick, as far as I know, invented by a British magician named Patrick Page. And the trick then gets ripped off by so many other magicians who get called this and that, and eventually the name gets called Flash Cash, and then it becomes some other name. And the trick eventually has many different permutations. But when it boils down to it, it's the changing of 5 sheets of something into 5 sheets of something else.
You mentioned a couple of the movies like from last summer, The Prestige and films like that, where there was tremendous conflict over who invented what.
Sure.
Is there a lot of envy and jealousy and proprietary controlling interest among magicians over different tricks?
I think so. I think, in saying this in a little bit of a risque way, magicians can be very bitchy.
Yeah. And,
there's kind of a control aspect of where did this trick come from, and is it mine or is it yours? And it's okay. It's good, because when you're a creator of something, you feel like it's your child, and you want to become protective of it.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with being protective of your ideas. In fact, it's to be encouraged. But the double-edged sword of that is that we're dealing with secrets. So let's say that I invent a trick, or I invent some new handling of a trick, and the only way to claim that it's mine is to publish it in some magic journal, and there's plenty of them, both online and in print. So I've now established this is my trick because it has my name, Steve Cohen, attached to it. Mm-hmm. But in the very act of publishing it, I've also given permission to any other magician to use that trick. So now I've lost really proprietary ownership.
It's a two-edged sword.
Right.
Exactly.
The other option is to not publish it and try to keep it secret.
But
then someone else finds out about it, or they invent it themselves. Independent creation. Mm-hmm. You know, people at various times, the planets align and people think up the same ideas.
Right.
So then you've lost your crediting rights.
Your ability to say that was mine.
Exactly.
That's my signature.
Exactly.
We're going to take a break right now. Come back in a couple of moments. There's a thing called Think-A-Drink, is it?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite tricks in the world.
All right, we're going to take a look at that and a whole lot more. Steve Cohen, back with us in a moment. Don't go away.
This demonstration is not name a drink and pour it. It's called Think-A-Drink. And there's one last person who has not helped us out yet, and that was you, John. Would you please come to the front of the room? And John, once you've come here, would you please open up your card and read it silently to yourself? And once you've gotten that card, do you know that drink? Yeah. Okay, very good. Would you please now put it away? And with your left hand, hold on to the glass from below, just as I did. With your right hand, would you please hold the kettle? Very good. And would you please now think of the drink as you're pouring? Go ahead and hold it up high so everyone can see. Is it mouthwash?
No.
What are you thinking?
Gatorade?
Gatorade, okay. Why don't you have a taste? Let us know if that is indeed Gatorade.
Yep.
Indeed it is. Very happy indeed.
All right, Steve Cohen doing the Think-A-Drink trick. That's a trick, I guess. Is that the proper term?
Yeah, well, you know, they're tricks or demonstrations or illusions. This is clearly a trick. I mean, it's an old trick as well, and one of my favorites. It's called Think-A-Drink, and I've got this, as you saw, a magic tea kettle that pours any drink that you call for, and you only saw on the tape one drink, but
so
I have people around the room. I mean, I've got like 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 people all asking for drinks, and they all pour it.
Out of that same kettle?
Out of the same kettle, one after the next.
And if somebody said coffee, there would be coffee.
Oh, and I asked them then, would you like it with milk or sugar, or, you know, whatever they asked for. One time, a person asked for a frozen margarita. A frozen margarita poured out, slushed out of there. The next person wanted hot chocolate, and then that came out with marshmallows.
Would it be impolite of me to ask how you do it?
Well, that's the one question I don't entertain, so sorry about that. But
there are magicians out there, or illusionists, you know who I'm going to ask about, Penn and Teller, who have, in many cases, unveiled the secrets behind the illusions. What do professional magicians such as yourself think about that?
Oh, well, I'm one of the biggest fans of Penn and Teller, actually, and I'm friendly with Teller as well. So I have no problem with what they do specifically because, first of all, it's pure artistry, and second of all, a lot of the exposure that they do is tricks that have been invented to be exposed. In other words, they're not real tricks that are being used by common magicians today, but ones that have been invented with the specific purpose of being exposed.
So part of the entertainment was to show you the illusion and then show you how it was done and how they manipulated.
Right, and you know, part of it, honestly, I think that magic tricks is, when you watch a magic trick, it's a contract between the audience and the magician, and there's a kind of a little wink wink going on saying, look, I've got a trick, I know the secret, you don't, and try to figure it out, and if you can't, it's okay because it was all in fun.
Well, it's like going to a movie or watching a TV program. There's a suspension of disbelief that we allow ourselves. We know what's happening on the screen is not happening in real life. It's an image projected onto a screen. So in magic as well, we're allowing ourselves to suspend our beliefs for a while, I guess.
Exactly, and that's the point. You know, I mean, you know, even in modern age, everyone needs to have some wonder. Yeah. And a magic show is that resource or that location where you're allowed to have wonder. Yeah. And it's kind of a metaphor for the real magic in the world.